Hey everybody, check out the cool new thing behind me. It's a Fibonacci. I like it. I think it's pretty cool. Let's kick this off, shall we? Hello everybody, and thank you for listening to the Stuff I Heard podcast. I am your host, Josh Peak. Hi everybody. Today happens to be a Wednesday, April the 8th, 2020. So today happens to be my mother's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you. Thank you for putting up with me for so many years and inspiring me and trying to make me a better person and trying to curtail all of the devilish things that I would do if I were left up to my own devices, which I have been from time to time. Thank you for encouraging me, no matter how crazy my ideas are and how foolish I seem to be at times. Thank you for being the guiding light that I have. Whenever I think about doing something really stupid, I hear a voice in my head that goes, that's probably not a good idea. That's my mom's voice that I hear. And she's usually right. You know, I've been here on this planet now about 45 years, going on 46 soon. And hey, so good so far, right? If you guys are watching the YouTube video right now, you're seeing this new thing behind me. This is a Fibonacci pattern that I got off the internet. Now, when I got it off the internet, I thought it would be bigger. I mean, it's pretty big. It kind of covers what's behind me, which I didn't want it to just be the unpainted wall or the wall that I've like taken nails out of the wall and I've repatched and repainted, and it looked like it was splotchy in sections. And while this is probably distracting behind me, it is a lot cooler than just plain yellow walls. I think it's pretty. I think it's beautiful. If you're listening to this and you don't know what it is, go on the YouTube page and you'll see what I'm talking about. It looks like space with black holes and flashes of light and a sequential pattern that sort of curtails off of each other in all sorts of directions. It's very beautiful. It's very poetic. It inspires me. One of the things I like to talk about is space. I like to talk about time. I like to talk about the possibility of time travel, of parallel universes, of all kinds of craziness that for a lot of people they would think is just crazy talk. For me, I'm into it. Like, I get into it. I get into the idea of it. I like to think of the possibilities. I know there's people out there that are born again Christians that they're like, listen, the Earth's only 6,000 years old. And listen, great. I'm glad you believe that. I'm not one to disbelieve. I'm not one to say that you're wrong. I wasn't here, so I don't know. I don't know. What I do know is that there is a thing called a scientific method where they test things. They have a scientific method where you have a hypothesis and then you try to poke holes at your hypothesis and prove that it's either right or it's wrong. And along that way, you come up with ideas of what you think is real and what isn't. And I know from, coming up through school and whatnot that they can test things that they find in the earth, and they can tell you basically how old something is. They can tell you if it's like, 2,000 years old or 100,000 years old and that kind of stuff by carbon dating and that kind of thing, which is really fascinating. It's all kinds of stuff that I know nothing about. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. Now, if I did, well, I'd feel completely different about it than just someone who, listens to everything and goes, cool. It's sort of like one of those knowledge things that you just kind of want to know is real and then move on. Like, even if it wasn't real and someone said, hey, this is what we're doing to test things and we can tell you that dinosaurs existed this long ago. You go, all right, cool. I don't need to know it. Like, it doesn't affect my daily life. If it's real or if it's not real, it really doesn't affect my daily life. It is kind of cool to think about, though, especially when you go to museums and you see these giant put together skeletons of dinosaurs. You're like, oh, I can't believe that was real. It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating that some farmer could be out digging and he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to plant me a new field over here. I got to get a well dug. And he starts digging and all of a sudden he hits something. He's like, what did I hit? Man, that didn't feel right. So he starts digging a little deeper and all of a sudden he uncovers a skeleton. Whoa, what is that? And every once in a while it's a complete skeleton. And then you get these cool things like, the giant woolly mammoth that we saw when we were up in New York at the Natural History Museum there. Beautiful, just gorgeous. They found the thing fully intact in some guy's farm in Montana. How cool is that? A fully intact woolly mammoth with the tusks and everything. I mean, it's so different than seeing it on TV and then you see it in person. You're like, wow. I mean, just the size and the scope of it takes your breath away. Well, one of the things that takes my breath away is the idea of time and space. You know, I'm a big fan of science fiction stuff, and I love watching science fiction stuff. I've talked about, you know, there's a show called Altered Carbon that just came out with season 2, where they have these little discs that fit in the back of people's necks. The discs are called stacks, and that's supposed to be like your memories, your personality. It's basically you. And then they put it into a body, what they call a sleeve, which is a, you know, physical organism that's their host. And so you have stacks and you have sleeves, and so potentially, if you don't damage your stack, you could live forever. They just take your stack out of one sleeve and put it in another sleeve, which opens up all kinds of neat ideas for science fiction-y stuff. I mean, you know, you could have someone living several hundred years, and they have experience, and they're growing wealth if they're smart, if they don't make any stupid mistakes, and, you know, meanwhile, you've got terrorist groups that are fighting against them, and you've got, you know, cool magical type things where some people have grown abilities over the years, and it's just, I mean, it's fascinating. Again, it could all be just a bunch of hooey, but it's neat, okay? One of the things I've always been fascinated with is black holes, and to me, this Fibonacci thing behind me kind of looks like a bunch of black holes that spiral out and go all directions. And I've always wondered, you know, nobody really knows where black holes go. They can measure black holes. They can see them through telescopes, how gravity disappears, and how there's a void of anything, how it sucks in all matter. And the big question is, where does it go? Well, a lot of scientists believe that the black holes are possibly time warps that goes into other galaxies, that you could enter a black hole and come out, you know, several thousand light years away somewhere, or millions of light years away. Who knows? Nobody knows. What I like to believe is that because while we don't know that, we also don't know where suns come from, stars basically. We don't know where stars come from. What if our three-dimensional idea of what we can see and perceive is completely wrong? And what if those black holes then become stars? What if they're all interlooped into each other in a fourth dimensional setting where all of the energy that's sucked into the black hole then flourishes from the inside of a star? What if that's what's happening? What if? It's a big what if now. It's a big thing to wrap your head around. It'll, you know, I've kind of talked about this before on other podcasts when I've sat around by myself just musing about things. And listen, I know it's one of those things where if you believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old, you're going to be like, okay, dude, whatever. I'm just serious. Like, this is something that I think about. And whenever I look at this pattern, I've seen Fibonacci drawings before, it makes me think of that kind of stuff. It makes me think that there's a mathematical reason to things, and that there's a pattern to things, and that everything fits together in a certain way. And maybe that way is something that we don't know. Maybe that pattern is something that we can't perceive because we're so young in this world. I mean, your typical human lives to be, what, 70-ish years old, 77, 72, something like that, somewhere in that range. Okay, so we've only been around in America for a couple hundred years. I mean, our country is fairly new. As people, we're fairly new on this planet, on this rock, compared to dinosaurs, compared to the cataclysmic events that have happened where meteors have struck the planet and melted the polar ice caps, where we've gotten solar flares that have, you know, completely eradicated life on this planet more than once. And we have actual scientific evidence of all of that. There's really cool scientists out there like Graham Hancock who write books about this kind of stuff. Fingerprints of the Gods. Really fascinating stuff. But what if we just, let's say that we're born right now in some country that doesn't have Wi-Fi and you don't have access to the outside world, and you just look up at the stars and you start your life right now not knowing anything. And you don't come into contact with anybody else ever again. What would you think is going on? What would you perceive is going on? How would you look at the world with the stars going by, and every once in a while you see planes? What would you think a plane would be if you saw it in the sky? Would you think it's an alien? Would you think it's, oh look, you know, the sky people are telling me something? What would you think? Kind of makes you wonder, right? Of course, I could just be crazy. I mean, that's possible too. I'm fully aware that I may be wrong. And I don't mind being wrong. I accept that I'm wrong sometimes. I mean, if you can't be wrong, then are you really taking any chances? Are you trying anything? My mom, always reading, always trying to better herself, always trying to better me, used to tell me stuff like, you know, the president of IBM says if you don't make at least 4 mistakes a day, you're not doing enough. You're not taking enough chances. And then she'd come home from another day and she's like, you know, the president of this company says that they called a meeting and they needed to get rid of people. And they asked everybody in the board meeting, do you know the name of the janitor? And if they didn't know, they fired them on the spot. Because they wanted them to know that everybody's job there was just as important as a janitor. It didn't matter if they were at the top of the food chain or not. If they didn't know everybody that worked there and what they did and why they were important, then they didn't need them there. They needed to know that they were one component working together towards a goal. And while that may be all hyperbole and whatnot, it was still a lesson that I had to learn of, you know, pay attention to other people around you, give respect to everybody around you. Doesn't matter what your position is in life, that everybody's important. And that's true. That's the kind of thing that I've tried to tell other people growing up, you know, my kids, their friends, whoever I come into contact with, my brothers, my sisters, you know, hey, this is important. This is the kind of stuff you want to pay attention to. And I kind of want to treat this podcast that way. Like, as I'm learning things and as I'm growing, as I'm developing, I'm trying to pass along what I know to you guys. Because, I mean, one day I'm not going to be here. Who knows how long I've got, right? Some of this may help somebody in the future. Right now we're going through a pandemic to which we've never seen before. And I want to reach out to community. I want to reach out to the people around me to say, hey, here's your opportunity to come on and talk about things that you're facing or problems that you're finding or solutions that you're finding. You know, sometimes you just need somebody to tell you, here's some things to get me out of the funk, which is why I had Kelvin on recently. Kelvin Durant came on. Totally screwed that up. Kelvin Durant came on. He is a therapist at a New You Counseling Center here in Florence, South Carolina. And you can reach him on the internet. You can go on Facebook and find him, look him up. He's there. And ask for help and say, hey, listen, I'm having a hard time right now. I just need to talk to somebody. And there's no problem with admitting that you have a problem. The problem is if you don't, if you always think, oh, I can handle it myself. No, you can't. We're not meant to handle things ourselves. We're meant to reach out to one another, to help one another. He's a professional. Reach out to him. Talk to him. If he can't help you, he'll at least point you in a direction of someone who can. If you don't feel comfortable talking to him, go talk to your local pastor. Go talk to your teacher. Go talk to a family member, a friend, anybody that you feel confident they're going to steer you in the right direction. If you get that weird spidey sense that they're not helping you, go to somebody else. There are people out there that'll help you, okay? If you need to talk to me, reach out to me. You can find me. I got a website, stuffiheard.com. There's a contact page. Send me a message. Click on the link. Write a note, whatever. Let me know. I talked to Kelvin about coming back on the podcast. He's been getting a lot of feedback on his end. He was kind enough to retweet or resend out everything on Facebook, and he's got a lot of feedback from it, and he wants to do a question and answer. But I told him that I haven't been getting any questions from anybody. I've been getting a lot of people saying they really enjoyed it and they liked the conversation and they want to have more of the conversation had. But I kind of need you guys to do your part. Like, reach out to me and give me some questions that could be asked of him that he can possibly answer. I've talked about collaborating with him and another guy, Danny McWilliams. You guys have seen him on here before. And possibly doing like a question answer thing with the two of them. Maybe an opportunity for folks to get a perspective they haven't thought of. I went out today and I met with Kyle Hardy, one of the co-owners of Tubbs and King Cafe and Pizza Mio, and he and I were talking about if he gets some free time, I'd like for him to come on here and talk about what it's like being a small business owner, trying to make it in the economy, what's going on, and try and provide some perspective to maybe other local small business owners who are going through this stuff. And it'd give him an opportunity to help promote his business and that kind of thing. But also, you know, right now it's really up to the people who think outside the box that's going to make this get better. Like, it's going to be the people who are really starting to look at what they're doing and say, I bet there's another way. Like, have we thought about doing it this way? I mean, now's your chance. Like, if you let's just say you don't have the technical training to do a job, but you're a problem-solving kind of mind. Now's your time to take a chance and step up and mention it to people and say, hey, listen, I think I got an idea. I think this will work. And be part of the change. Be part of what helps things get better. You know, we can all do that. It just takes effort. That's all. So anyway, I would like to give everybody a bunch of information about things to maybe take their mind off of what's going on. Again, Kelvin talked about try to get outside, try to get some sunlight, try to get some exercise if you can. I'm trying to line up something with a local fitness instructor. I'm going to have her on here probably Sunday, and we're going to talk about how to keep your fitness goals during this pandemic, and you know, some things that you could do at home to work out with, things that you have laying around, that kind of stuff. So if you're if you're looking forward to that, just be on the lookout for it. It's coming. Also, with this downturn of the economy, I'm working less hours, so I have more time to do podcasts. So I'm going to be doing more per week. So if you're looking for content, there's content out there. And I'm not the only one. Like every creator that's out there has doubled down and realized, oh, I'm not on tour? Sure, I'll do a free concert from my living room. There's country music stars right now and other artists that are literally logging on to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and like, hey, I'm doing a concert from my house. I'm going to play a few songs. You guys want to log on? And they're just jamming. They're just having a good time and trying to connect with fans. Because they know when all this ends, they're going to go back on tour and you're going to want to see them in person. I mean, comedians too. The comedians just did this recent thing to raise money for struggling comedians and comedy clubs and stuff like that. I don't know if it's for comedy clubs and comedians. Anyway, from my understanding, it's for struggling comedians. You can find it everywhere where you can find comedy online. They all linked it. They all participated. It was like a 9-hour event where people donated money to try and help out people who are struggling. And the comedians themselves gave of their time and their money to help other artists to kind of survive this. So there is lots of content out there. You know, I'm a big fan of Bert Kreischer. Two Bears, One Cave is out there. The Bill Bert podcast is out there. Bert has his own podcast called the Bertcast. I watched him, matter of fact, this morning, do an interview with AJ McHale. Is that his name? He was one of the NSYNC Backstreet Boy guys that danced. I don't know which band. I don't follow the boy bands of the 90s. I know right now my sister-in-law, my brother's wife Michelle, would be like, "Oh my God, AJ!" You know, it's really cool. And they're social distancing. They're doing it via Zoom on their computer so that he can be where he's at in his house and Bert can be at his place in his studio. And it's still a good conversation. It's pretty interesting. I had no idea all the information about this guy. He goes into detail talking about how they really got swindled by one guy in particular who made himself a sixth member of the band in the contract. And then he also had a contract as their manager and also had a contract as some other part of their program where he got paid 3 times for every dollar they got paid. He got paid for 3 different positions. It's a pretty crappy guy. But he goes into detail about his battles with drug and alcohol addiction and how he's been trying to recover from that and, you know, the struggle that he's up against and stuff like that. So, you know, there's stuff in there for everybody. The Two Bears, One Cave, Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura have a podcast together. They've been doing more. You know, Dr. Drew's done the rounds. He's been on Fighter and the Kid. He's been on Your Mom's House. He's been on Where My Mom's At with Christina Pazynski. There's just lots and lots of good content. Bert's wife, Leanne, has been on Christina Pazynski's Where My Mom's At show. I've watched all of these. I've watched just tons and tons of content. I've also watched season 3 of The Ozarks, and OMG, it is so good. Listen, if you haven't watched The Ozarks, you're missing out. It is really fantastic. I would say it's for everybody, but it's not. It's pretty violent, and there's lots of foul language. But here's so basically here's the premise of the first season, because they're on season 3 now. You guys, the premise of the first season is Justin Bateman is a financial guy working in a financial place, and he's laundering money for the Colombian drug cartel in Chicago. And within the first few minutes, he finds out that his wife is having an affair with a guy, and the drug cartel finds out about it. They not only throw this guy out of a window, but they also shoot his partner in the head for stealing money from them. And he has to cleverly come up with a way to make the drug cartel more money so that he can stay alive, because he's afraid that they're going to kill his wife and kids. So he convinces them that the Ozarks is where he's going to go make them their money and launder their money better. And that's where the show takes off. That's within the first 5 minutes of the show. That's not really telling you anything. That's just setting the plane of what's going to happen. And then from there, it's basically like a roller coaster ride. You need to buckle up and hold on, because it's going to get crazy. And it does. It gets crazy. Crazy. The Snells are terrifying. There's a young girl with curly blonde hair. You've seen her on everything. She's got a ridiculous southern accent. Is a powerful character, Ruthie. Ruth is awesome. Holy cow. The show is great. The show is great. The show is great. The show is great. You gotta watch it. I'm just saying. You gotta watch it. Also, comedy specials. There's lots of comedy specials out there. Bert Kreischer has his comedy special, Hey Big Boy. Tom Segura has Ball Hog. Both are really, really funny. Taylor Tomlinson, Quarter Life Crisis, because she turns 25. Taylor Tomlinson is hilarious. I just listened to a podcast with Taylor Tomlinson on Whitney Cummings' podcast, Good For You. It was almost 3 hours, or just over 3 hours, of just rapid fire conversation and comedy back and forth. One of the things that I'm kind of critical of Whitney about her podcast is, listen, I'm a big Whitney Cummings fan. I think she's a enterprise on her own. I think she is a dominant force in entertainment. She's a creator. She's an innovator. She's a producer, director, writer, comedian, actor. She's the whole package, okay? And on her podcast, a lot of times she has a back and forth with her engineer, producer guy named Benton. And Benton's got a kind of a sugar pants kind of voice, you know. He's a little effeminate. And sometimes they talk for like an hour and a half before the interview begins. Now, here's my theory on that, okay? My theory is sometimes the guests aren't that good, and they just have filler. Now, I may be wrong. I don't know Whitney. I'm not friends with Benton. I don't know the inner workings of their plan. I find myself fast-forwarding the little button, you know, when you're looking at the thing, hitting the fast-forward button over and over and over again to get past the part where she's talking to Benton, because I don't care about their conversation. It's just not for me. Some people, it might be their alley. They might be right up their alley about, oh, I like this conversation. It's pretty fun. Because they're silly, and they talk about their history, and they talk about whatever. I've listened to it before. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear her interview people, because her conversations with people are really good. This one with Taylor Tomlinson is fantastic. They rapid fire off each other so quickly. They're both so smart. They're both so innovative in what they do. And this is a good 3 hours of just like, holy cow. Funny stuff. Okay? So anyway, go check that out. Huge fan, like I said. Also, Fighter and the Kid. I've just jumped on the Fighter and the Kid bandwagon here in the last couple of weeks, but I've listened to every one. I like them all. The one with Joe McHale was great. The one with Dr. Drew was great. The one where they're just hanging out and it's they call Brandon Schaub Big Brown or Thick Boy or Jackson Smooth. They got all kind of nicknames for him. They go back and forth with him a good bit on his birthday, and he's drinking some whiskey that's like $1,000 a bottle, and he gets kind of lit while they're joking around and whatnot, and it's fun. He is hilarious. The episode they had Joe Coy on is what got me to watch the show to start with, or listen to the show to start with. Listen, all these are distractions. All these are things that you can participate with to keep your mind off of the pandemic and the fact that you got to socially isolate and all that fun stuff. Or you could just log on to me and watch my YouTube stuff or listen to podcasts or stare at this weird Fibonacci behind me and be like, whoa, dude, that's really pretty. I can't take my eyes off of it. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to look at myself in the eyes in the camera ahead of me, but I keep looking at the pattern going, that's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. Dude, do you see it? It's so beautiful. So I've downloaded a program called Zencastr, Zencastr, Zencastr. And I think it's a way for me to do phone interviews without using my phone. I think you do it through, I haven't done it yet. I'm gonna like test with it with somebody before I actually try to like kick this thing off. But a guy that I work with has a podcast. Shout out to DJ Blaze Radio Show podcast. Elijah Pearson. He was like, listen, he goes, I got this program. You can link up to like 4 or 5 people at the same time. You can do it through a computer. If they have a mixer board and a microphone, it'll sound like they're right in the room with you. And I'm like, cool. He's like, it's it's kind of a way where you could do stuff with people and they don't have to be there. I'd mentioned possibly doing one with Zoom, but I've heard that Zoom has a limitation of like 40 minutes. And I don't want to like run into limitations, and I don't want to have to pay for another service. And he was like, the thing about this Zencastr thing is, if you use them to record the podcast, it costs a lot of money because you're taking up data on their platform. But you can use them to stream through them and then open up like GarageBand or Audacity, one of the two, and just record off what you normally record off. He says, it'll come through the board just like they're there. And I was like, really? Holy cow. So I'm going to play with that. I'm going to see what works. I did something with my brother and sister yesterday, and it's totally not usable for any podcast, but I use this app called Hangouts. It's looks like parentheses with a green little doohickey on it, like a bubble. And Hangouts allow the 3 of us to 3-way voice video with each other on our phones. So it was pretty cool. The only thing that I didn't like about it was very choppy with the internet. I've got really excellent internet, but it kept cutting in and out of each one of them depending on what was moving around. And it may be because so many people right now are on the internet. I know that they've said that they've slowed down the internet for a lot of people just because they're trying to keep up with the large influx of people watching stuff. Speaking of which, let's talk about Onward on Disney. Disney Plus, Disney came out with this movie Onward that was supposed to be at the theater right now. And when all this happened, they were like, well, nobody's going to the theater. So they tried to sell it for a while at $20 a download. Like $20 you could download it at your house and then you got it. And if you think about it, that's cheaper than going to the movies to watch it. So I don't know if they made a lot of money from it. Probably not. But then they just released it for free on Disney Plus. They're like, yeah, just watch it. It's good. It's really good. The first 30 minutes or so of it, I was kind of bored. I was just like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like, they're trying to set you up with the information of what's going to lead you forward. But then the last half of the movie was great. It was heartwarming. It was everything that a Pixar movie is supposed to be. I don't know if Pixar did it. I think, yeah, Pixar did it. Yeah, Pixar did it. I remember the beginning with the stupid bouncy lamp on the eye. You know what I mean? Their intro thing. It's good. The ending was not what I expected, and it was better. Made me think of my brother. So shout out to Alex. Dude. You'll watch it. Y'all watch it and hit me back. Let me know what you think about it. Also, I have caught up to all, I feel like I'm like humble bragging, but I've caught up to all of the Star Wars animated Clone Wars on Disney Plus. They're currently on the last season, 7 seasons worth. And this is a little depressing to say, but there's like 30-ish episodes per season. And this is taking me a really long time to do, but I've watched all of them. Now, I haven't intently sat in front of the TV, like totally undistracted, watching it, but I've watched all of them. Some of them I paid more attention to the others because some of the storylines are just kind of not important in my opinion. It's just filler. But there are some really cool episodes that explains a lot. It's like you needed to watch it before you watched the movies. Like, if you watch these in succession, this is the Clone Wars they talked about before Anakin turns into Darth Vader. It's really good. It's really done well. I mean, I'm impressed. Osaka, I think that's her name, Osaka. She's like Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. She, spoiler, leaves the Jedi Order. She's supposed to pop up in the Mandalorian series coming up, and Rosario Dawson is supposed to play her. Very cool. Looking forward to that. Really cool story. I still think that Rebels was done better than Clone Wars. I think Rebels is all in all a better series, but Clone Wars is good. I think I've talked about it before. I wasn't a huge fan at the beginning, but I am now. So it's worth a watch. Like, you got time. What else are you going to do? One of the things my wife and I have been doing is she got on this kick of watching Andy Griffith stuff. On Netflix right now, all of the Andy Griffiths are available. You know that Andy Griffith, Don Knotts, Barney Fife, Opie Taylor, Ron Howard. Spoiler, Ron Howard used to be Opie Taylor. But there's like 7 or 8 seasons. There's like 30 episodes per season. They're all 20-ish minutes long. And it's been our go-to every evening for a while now. It helps me kind of settle my brain and just sort of feel better about life. I don't know, there's something really wholesome about it. Maybe because I watched it when I was a kid, but it just makes me feel happy and at peace. There's something about a show that every episode ends where everything kind of works out and makes you feel better about your life, you know? It's sort of like that smile until you're happy kind of deal, or fake it till you make it. Watching that show where everything works out sort of gives you a sense of peace and a sense of understanding that, yeah, everything is going to work out. So it's worth a watch, right? That's it. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you to everybody who's been participating in the podcast and for sending me t-shirt pictures. If you haven't sent me a picture yet with the new t-shirt, please do so. Also, let me know if you buy one of the t-shirts that I have for sale on storefrontier.com/stuffiheard. The links are on the website, www.stuffiheard.com. I've got 3 t-shirt designs out there right now. I've got one that's the purplish looking alien head. I've got one that's an octopus design, and I've got one for the girls podcast that they've decided to name Stuff She Said. I've even created a separate page on the website that has the t-shirt link there, as well as all of their episodes that they've done. As they do them as a group, I'm going to continue to post them together so that if you wanted to listen to them in order, they're labeled, they're numbered, and you can deep dive and follow along and all that fun stuff. As you buy them, let me know, and I'll mention you on the show. So, special thank you to everybody out there for participating and being a part of this. Please remember, rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, and give me some questions and answers for Kelvin next time he's on, okay? Y'all take care, and as always, remember, cue the cow. And wash your hands.